So,
but I definitely told him he definitely was down with it, and I go ahead on and drop this little. I don't know if he want me to say it, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Goddamn, he wanted to put together like a documentary, and so he was like, he said,
tell him I'm with it.
Yeah, he said right now I only know 2 people right now, and that's you and Rod Hayes. I wanna
So, tell Dane if he needs some help getting across the street like an old lady, he can call me.
Yeah, we gonna definitely put that together. So our last conversation, that's what we talked about, but he did bring it up, and he was like, man, set it up, but shit, when I hit him back that day, he ain't answered. We posted one on the Sunday or something.
Yeah. Ain't no big deal. I just wanted to what they call it. Just bother you a little bit.
Nah, I already know how it goes, man. I want to get him in there too. While I'm up here, I want to know what's your thoughts on pig Latin and because down here we spoke pig Latin. I grew up in the house. My mom and them, they spoke pig Latin, and I was doing some research on it, and pig Latin is actually an ancient language. It actually go back to the medieval times. It's an old language. Go back to the medieval times.
But the way we use it is different.
Why you say that?
The way we use it, we using a tribal communication method, using the foreigner's language to communicate tribally. They call it pig Latin, but that's not what real pig Latin was.
Yeah, it has an ancient name to it. Yeah, it has a different name. It derived from dog language, which was a mixture of Latin and English. So, but that was a language that we spoke, and we didn't want the white man to know what we was talking about.
Exactly. Now you catching up. So they named it pig Latin because they didn't want to say that the natives was learning our language and using it against us.
Yeah, they came in the late 1700s. They started calling it pig Latin, but yeah, but that was one of the former, like I said, that was one of the former languages we used when we didn't want nobody to know what we were saying. So, yeah, and the Indians, is Indian tribes down here who spoke pig Latin. That I found it. They actually spoke their language.
But when they talk to the foreigners, they talk perfect English,
right?
With a southern accent.
Yeah, we'll call it broken English. People in the north, they spoke better English than we spoke, and that was one of the things through the schooling. They made us change words, so it's. Like we'll say, them, where your mama them at? In school they'll tell us it's them, the correct word to be them. We'll ain't finna, we'll say ain't, we'll say finna. And in school they taught us they call it proper English, King's English. So they altered our language through the education.
But when you look at it, Topcast, you got to remember everywhere they brought a language, we altered it. They started calling them stuff like pidgin language or patois. The French is calling it the patois. The English is saying they speak in pidgin, right? And the Spaniards is saying they speak in pig Latin, right? So you got these different people trying to figure out what we're doing. When they start teaching Tupac in the university, they start teaching in the schools something called Ebonics. The other way, because we keep changing the language because we forever creative and we forever changing the language so that they can't never get 2 steps ahead of us because they have to always got to stop every 10 or 15 years and try to translate what we're saying from how we've adapted the language they gave us to how we using it. And it frustrates them so bad because dope today means narcotic. Tomorrow it means fresh. Now they stuck because we saying, oh man, I got on these dope threads. They thinking you got dope on your clothes. Now they running all these laboratory tests and thousands of dollars and find out that shit was just fresh, brand new from the store.
But watch this here too, I got some research that show Indian tribes speaking English when the Europeans came in contact with them. Plenty of tribes, especially on the eastern seaboard, and when they got to the south, even Gullah language, the Gullah Geechee language that they speak about. The first person to speak about it was in the early 1900s to speak about this Gullah language or this Gullah people or Gullah culture, and he said that they speak broken English. Now later on, Lorenzo Dow Turner came and said that it was an African language. And then later on, Joseph Afala came in the 80s, and he's a credit to making the quote unquote Gullah connection through the language. A white boy, he got Sierra Leone citizenship. So I'm saying, because this is my thing, when we don't, how long would it take for a person to actually colonize a person to speak the language when we all didn't go to school, we all didn't go to church? It was interior parts that of the U.S. that we lived in that they didn't even come in contact until the civil rights, when they, you know, we see them come down in the civil rights and start coming to get a lot of that land down there then through the assimilation. That's when people start going to school or going to you feel me, being around them, because our pastors came out of our community a lot of the times. But yeah, so I'm seeing that because my grandma, all right, so I found a record, a census record in the 1800s, and it had on there, it had language, what language they speak. The whole list spoke English. My grandmother on there spoke English. So coming all the way through the 1800s, all the way to my household when I was growing up in the 90s, everybody still speaking a form of English because my grandma don't say all the words right. And we was a little embarrassed to bring my friends over because my mama was first generation from the country. So when they hear my grandma talk, she probably sound like she ain't got no sense or know what she talking about. But we understand everything she's saying. It's just broken English. You feel me? So yeah, I had wanted to get your thoughts on it.
Well, we got to first go back to when was we first exposed to English? Because we was exposed to English long before the settlers came. Because the Irish came first to escape the settlers with the Norse, who was protecting Scotland and Scotia. So we was exposed to English around the 1100s.
Correct.
From
so
the Irish.
Now you just hit some on the head. So in 1066, you had the invasions of the Normans. The Normans came into England from what would be France, and with William the Conqueror. Once they started taking over that land, that's where you get the mix, because it was only a few people back then who spoke the language. They also spoke the dog Latin language. So that'll be Scots, that'll be Irish, and that'll be people from England, Anglo-Saxons. And with that emergence of the Normans, that's when it came in. Back then, they had something called the Great Vowel Shift. You familiar with that? The Great Vowel Shift, where they started taking out the vowels in some of the words, or making long vowels in some of the words. And that,
oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. That's the same as in Arabic when they added the sun letters. I got you. I'm with you.
Yeah, that's when they altered it in from this Old English, this language called Old English. Now the dog language or Latin, it was a mixture of Latin and that English language. It was a trade language. And when they got over here to the North Carolinas and to the South, they were speaking it. But in the 13 colonies, the people in the South didn't get contact with the Europeans until after 1815, at the beginning of the Seminole Wars, when the South started going into statehood, like Alabama, 1817, when they started getting Georgia.
I'm gonna give you a lead on some research. Find out who Momo Brise is and how did she get her red hair, pink ass in the pantheon of the gods of the Voodoo in New Orleans.
Okay, I'm gonna check it
out. Once you then you'll start to see how long we've been interacting with pale faces too.
Well, I don't think they was pale faces. I say that. And another thing I wanted to ask you about the coats of arms. Now, when we look at these coats of arms, a lot of us have these names, but when we look on the other side of the world with them, it's more of us here than it was them. So my question would be, do you think that these places like London, Paris, Ulster, out of the Isles of Man, the Highlands, and the North and Southern Scotland. The people from the West, they were called. You had people coming out the West, but they also called the people that was coming out of Ireland the West as well. But these are the only particular people that spoke this language. Now they spoke the same language, and they had the same style of architect that you find here in the Americas, which is in a multitude more than them, because we have states bigger than the countries out there. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that, because
you also got to remember that we sent Algonquins to help the French and the Spanish to exile the Moors out of Europe.
Yeah, well, the Algonquins helped the French. The Algonquins had a direct connection with the French, and I think it's a direct bloodline, because in 1563 they came to South Carolina, Fort Caroline, and the Indians crashed their settlement. Well, when they came back to the U.S., they went straight to Canada, in the upper regions of Canada, and they helped the Algonquins fight the Iroquois nation. And so we see the French have their longest settlement in Canada before 1763, when after the French and Indian War, that's when they lost it and it transferred over to the British. But we do see them come down to Mississippi and then into Louisiana in the 1700s.
Do you know the origin of the English language?
Which one?
You know they don't originate in Europe.
Now, I think it comes from here, because you can't go and have contact with every person and change their language. That'll be impossible. So when we turn around and we see everyone speaking this language, different forms of it, because they have, if you look at the English language, they have Appalachian English, they have English coming from up north, they have the Sea Island English, they have Southern English, they have Texas English, they have different forms of what they call American English. So even though everyone in America, they don't speak the same form of English, they all have their own unique.
You're absolutely right, because matter of fact, a good example is a New Yorker and somebody from LA. And when they come into somewhere like Chicago, it take a minute for you to realize y'all speaking the same language, because you have certain stuff that's native to the other two cities, and neither one of them is taking place in the language going on in Chicago. But once they get together for a while, it only take a couple of minutes for you to say, oh, wait a minute, they're not speaking the same English. So now what we do, we revert to what we call the King's English or the Queen's English in order to communicate.
Find that common ground, right?
Right. Now, when you go to the origin of the English language, it was the Orisha language, which became Irish, which became English. Right.
Well, I thought it came from the Anglo-Saxons. The Anglo-Saxons.
No, it's an African tongue. It's originally an African tongue from northern Africa, and the priest who was Saint Patrick was slaughtering them, the ones who brought it over here. They was what we call pygmy priests, but they was all working to protect the heirs of Scotland and Ireland, which was the twin sisters, Scotia and Scotia. One of them is a buttermilk complexion with red hair. The other one had a caramel complexion with kingly hair and freckles. Today, you find Scotia's children in Nova Scotia and Scottish children in the Appalachian Mountains, because we didn't allow settlers to advance beyond the Appalachian Mountains unless they was about to marry into what we call the root clan.
Yeah, they get it done.
This is why the king told them don't cross them Appalachians, because they knew it was going to be a problem.
Yeah, that was King George. A situation happened in 1744 where the Iroquois was selling land that didn't belong to them, and they went to George and told him, "Man, you got to do something about this." And in 63, after the war, he signed the Proclamation Act, Treaty of Paris, and then you got the Proclamation line where they couldn't cross over the Appalachians, like you said. So that's what made the Scottish, who was always enemies with the English at that time, they became Indian traders. And so they became real prevalent in crossing the mountains and going to go trade. That's how they ended up becoming a major factor.
Well, before the English came, we was on good terms with Irish and Scots.
Yeah, they was here. That's why I say when you look at the coast of Orange, these families are just running the colony over there in Europe. So the international trade had been going on. So when King James united the crowns in 1603, came to Virginia in May 14, 1607. Then in 1640 to 1642, to be exact, the English Civil Wars would take place. Who would they raid? They'll raid Scotland, the royal lines out of Scotland, and the royal lines out of Ireland, Ulster, and these different places. These would be most of the indigenous areas that'll be taken in 1627 to Barbados and also into Virginia. And so this was an empire that they had because you had American Indians, you had people coming out of Jamaica and the islands. They went back to Europe and fought in that war. They also defeated African nations. They went into West Africa also with but see, they army played a big role in, but they went into Africa and smashed them niggas too. But you said something earlier.
That's why when they bring up them slave barracks, I always point to the fact that the cannons is not pointing inland. The cannons is pointing to the ocean. Who the hell is they fighting if the cannons is facing the ocean? Why would they be sending people off to go with the enemy? That don't even make sense.
Well, you know what else don't make sense? I thought about it too. So even with this story, you get King James is colonizing Virginia. Now, the story that they give us in Virginia, you got two characters. You have King James and you have Chief Powhatan. Now, in this story, the major characters, Chief Powhatan, his daughter. On the English side is John Smith, John Roast, the guy that's going to be said to have Pocahontas' baby. John Smith is the only one that's going to write. He's the primary source to it. And he wrote it later, and then right after that, he ended up passing away. Now, Pocahontas.
Ain't that a coincidence?
That's what I'm saying. Pocahontas passed away, and right after that, John Roast, her baby daddy, passes away just a month after her. Now, the whole story of Powhatan and his Indian story, that goes away, but the line of King James still goes on. So it'll be Virginia, Queen Elizabeth, her cousin James will take over. James, King James' grandson will be Charleston, South Carolina, 1670 to be named after that. Queen Charlotte will be named Charlotte, North Carolina, be named after her. So my question would be, is it possible that this hierarchy was actually in America instead of England? Now we know they united the crown, so they had an empire because King James was put over all overseas business. That's what the uniting of the crown in 1603 was about. So do you think they could have been here because the Indians, they died in the first 3 pages of the chapter, the first 3 pages of the chapter. We don't hear about the niggas no more. But
okay, you got to remember who write history. Do the losers write history?
The colonizer write the history. The winners write the history.
Right.
But we know that Pocahontas never lived. It never was a Pocahontas. And so that's why I'm saying, because we can follow this Stewart line down. The first Indian agent was James Stewart. So we see them, and he coming out of the Stewart bloodline. You also had the Bacons and the Tudors. They were kin. So Elizabeth was a Tudor. She was the last of the Tudor Empire. She had her boyfriend was Dudley, Robert Dudley, and Dudley was cool with the Bacon family. So you had Francis Bacon, who gonna write the King James Bible. He gonna come out of that line. King James is his first cousin. Nathaniel Bacon is his great nephew. He's gonna be involved in the Bacon's rebellion. He's the governor there. His cousin William Berkeley is the governor there. His cousin William Berkeley is the governor there, and they gonna fight in the Bacon's rebellion. But we see this line of King James and them present in and shit. He even got a town named after him, King James, but he don't have a town named after him in England. Queen Charlotte don't have a town named after her. James Duke of York, his grandson, New York is named after him. So Charleston is named after his other grandson. William and Mary is named after his great granddaughter. Mary, Queen Mary. Queen Anne War, 1701, 1702, is named after his great granddaughter. And so,
So
but we
now,
don't see these
what you're
names.
talking about is the royal edicts of the lords. The lords is the ones of the royal families of Europe that govern over land grants. And when they name the land after somebody, they name it in honor of them because they consider that a conquest, right? But they hadn't conquered yet. When they started naming stuff, it was in anticipation of us going along with the narrative that they had begun to feed us at the time, that that whole slave narrative and all of this stuff. But when you go back in the historical records, you will find that New York is New Yorkshire, and is named after Yorkshire, England. This goes into the mascot of